All right, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Friday night. It is officially 8:05 on September the 5th. Going to be a busy Friday night, of course. If you're going to stick around like the Night Owls might do with the team here at Wave News, going to break down some Touchdown Friday night a little later in the evening. But we do appreciate you joining us, whether that's on the Wave Now Smart TV app, on the Wave app itself, online, on all the different social media channels. I always appreciate you spending a little time with us. I'm Jose Sosadia here in the Wave Now studio. We do want to walk you through perhaps some of the big stories and headlines of the day, some of that breaking news. Not to say that, sometimes we as we'll discuss, and we do here on Wave News Extra, the highs and lows of some of these stories, and we're going to walk through some of that over the course of the next 45 minutes. But just want to walk you through, in case you haven't heard of some of those breaking headlines and stories we're still trying to follow, look at any of the latest details that could come across our news desk. Want to let you all know about the set of this graphic here, because right now police say they're trying to identify the person whose body was pulled from the Ohio River this afternoon. So startling discovery around 4:30. A tugboat operator says they called 911 telling dispatch that they thought they saw a body floating in the water just north of the Belle of Louisville, and we're told the body, the deceased person's body, it's of an adult. What we don't know yet is anything that might indicate who it could be, any other identifying characteristics. No word on their age, race, or gender. LMPD is, though, classifying this as a death investigation. Now looking at some other big stories of the day, and another startling development to initially what could have been, in itself a pretty tragic end result, because now we've learned there is a man in Louisville charged for the death of his own 5-year-old child. A warning, by the way, sometimes in the details we discuss in these cases, initially from the court documents and police documents we're able to get copies of, you do have to sort of parse through and look at some pretty disturbing details. So I want to warn everybody about that, as just in case. But from we've been able to gather in our own reporting tonight, LaRon Gardner Jr. now charged with several serious felony accusations: domestic violence, criminal abuse, assault, even murder. This dates back to a story we learned about Tuesday, where police were called to go to a home on Conestoga Avenue. The report they initially got was that there was an unconscious 5-year-old who apparently fell down the stairs. Paramedics say the child's injuries, though, didn't match the story that was given to police. And not only that, but the injuries the child suffered were much worse than what was first reported. In the end, a forensic medical examination found the child was kicked, slammed, even bitten before they were pushed down the stairs. The 5-year-old died the next day, and not that it ended excuses at all, but apparently police also letting us know in the arrest reports that there was a 4-year-old that was also hurt. In another case, this one with a much wider web, but letting us know from Indiana prosecutors and police investigators as well, that there's a man who's now pleaded guilty to sextortion of almost 70 kids on social media, and even sex trafficking at least 5 of these victims. 31-year-old Ryan Lawless of Colorado pleading to 27 of these counts of sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, and child abuse. There's an Indiana child exploitation task force that did the investigation. So the task force helped find the evidence, lead to Lawless's arrest. Court documents say he was doing this. The timeline was from late 2019 to May of 2023, pretending, 1, that he was a teenager, 2, that he'd used the name Kason Fredrickson as an alias to go on social media apps like Instagram, Snapchat, others. Lawless, according to prosecutors and police, coercing, sexually exploiting, and threatening almost 70 kids to send thousands of sexually explicit photos and videos. The victims ranged anywhere from ages 13 to 16 years old. They lived in nearly every state in the U.S., and according to prosecutors, the web extended to children in at least 5 foreign countries. So now looking at a story with perhaps ties to children's safety, and this is where local students wanted to take up their own stance and their own freedom of speech, perhaps. Manual High School students walking out of class today. We were there with our cameras as the students who did walk out saying that this was their demonstration against gun violence. Dozens of students walked out of class carrying signs, wearing shirts that read, quote, or that read, quote, "Students demand action." The demonstration for them comes on the heels of what was that deadly church and school shooting up in Minneapolis. 2 children killed, over a dozen people hurt. Gunman who shot inside the Annunciation Catholic Church. And some of the students did go on camera to share why today's message was as important as it was.
Our school is supposed to be a sanctuary for learning, and we should not be having to practice lockdowns or in case of a shooter.
Legislators should be fighting for us. They should not be fighting for the NRA. They should not be fighting for all of the PACs that support them to support assault rifles and high-capacity magazines. At the end of the day, students should be supported. Every citizen and resident should be supported. Everyone in America deserves to be supported and feel safe.
Other students we talked to say they want to go as far as to push lawmakers for a ban on assault weapons at both the state and federal level, asking lawmakers on top of that to come to a bipartisan solution. As far as updates for policy decisions on the other side of the river, so stepping away from the Kentucky angle to Indiana, lawmakers there are saying they've now secured millions of dollars for school safety initiatives. At least that's the latest update we have from the Indiana School Safety Board, unanimously approving more than $27 million for this kind of allocation. They say the money's going to go to nearly 500 schools and districts across the state. It's going to help those schools continue to staff their SROs, their school resource offices, inside campus buildings. The money could also be used, the state says, for active event warning systems, so an alert system for the schools, gun training for teachers and staff, as well as other support services. So far, more than $200 million of state funding has been dedicated to the matching grant program for Indiana since it was created back in 2013. And now we're going to switch to, or sort of stay in Indiana, but in the topic of another story that our wave troubleshooters have actually spent some time on, looking at the different confrontations you'll see as we lay out this reporting. And in the latest public comments from New Albany Mayor Jeff Gahan, saying straight out that he's opposed to the Origin Park project. And on top of that, in these public comments, also doubling down on the emergency maintenance that the city wanted to do with the Providence Mill Dam last year. Mayor Gahan taking that action to put the rock fill at the base of the dam after 14-year-old Andre Edwards Jr. drowned there last year, and that while the city was still caught up in a legal battle blocking River Heritage's permit to remove the dam altogether, well, now the mayor is going after this organization, River Heritage, according to our wave troubleshooter Alina Noakes is reporting again.
Thursday night, Mayor Jeff Gahan spoke out in a new press release, just 1 week after an appeals court shot down his continued attempt to block the removal of the Providence Mill Dam. He emphasizes he had bipartisan support to do what he called emergency maintenance by placing a rock fill in the summer of 2024. The state called it unauthorized. But the main point of his statement was not that. He was focused on Origin Park, that he now dubs an amusement park because of plans to build a whitewater rafting course. The mayor believes this contradicts the original plans for a nature preservation park that would be free to the public. He said no attempts have been made by River Heritage to reach out and discuss potential strains this would have on the city, and despite numerous requests to the nonprofit, they refused to meet with city leaders. Gahan holds that he is standing up for New Albany against a private corporation that is attempting to seize the city's public assets for private gain. On several occasions, including when we sat down with River Heritage leadership last year, we have heard the exact opposite. They are a nonprofit with board members from Clark and Floyd County. They have always said the park is open to the public, but with opportunities to pay for certain activities. And they have tried to talk to city leaders, but all attempts have failed. Some city officials are also disputing the mayor's claims. When I asked Councilwoman Louise Gohman if the mayor had bipartisan support for work at the dam, she said absolutely not. She also doesn't agree with the mayor's characterization of the park. And ultimately, she continues to press the mayor to tell the council and the public just how much money has been spent on efforts to block the removal of the Providence Mill Dam, telling me we need to move on.
Our troubleshooter Alina Noakes with that report, and based on other notes in Alina's reporting, that the councilwoman is not the only one asking some of these questions. And troubleshooters, by the way, sent the city a records request last year, August 14th of 2024, asking for invoices, payments, work orders, general costs related to the work that was done by the city on the dam. More than a year later, Wave News is still waiting for that official record request response. We have also filed a new request for any emails, phone calls, or messages between the city and River Heritage that would indicate there was an olive branch extended or one party trying to sit down to talk and meet with the other. River Heritage telling Wave News they're working on a response right now to the mayor's new comments, and if and when we do get those updates, we'll make sure to share them with you. We're going to take you on a look outside, staying on the Indiana side of things. Here's a look at our skyline from our Skytrack camera here in Jeffersonville, and observing a sun-setting day, a grayer day with some blue in the sky still above, but a day where we might have thought there was some rain that could have dampened the football plans at several levels, the U of L game, high school football, but we're keeping track of where those rains are coming kind of more so toward our south. And regardless, the storm tracking team will keep you updated. Ryan Hoke holding things down. It's something we're going to discuss later tonight on Wave News at 11 as well. As we take a quick commercial break here, we're going to be right back with more of some of today's big stories as we inch closer to our weekend. You're watching Wave News Extra. Welcome back, everyone. We're jumping right into more of today's big stories on this Friday, September 5th, here in the Wave Now studio for tonight's Wave Extra. One of those top stories, as I'll set things up here, being we did have a camera in court today, or at least access to cameras in court, for a suspect charged in connection to the shooting, the deadly shooting of a teen out in Valley Station. 18-year-old Jeremiah Robinson charged with complicity to murder and complicity to assault.
And Miss Muncy for arraignment purposes.
Your Honor, we're asking that the $500,000.
Well, Robinson is charged in connection to that shooting at an apartment on Laurent Way on Tuesday. That's where officers found a 17-year-old boy shot in the head who later died at the hospital. Police say another teen was found to have been shot in the wrist and ankle. And today, the judge set Robinson's bond at $500,000. More stories for you tonight. The next step involving Louisville's consent decree is underway. The city's looking to hire its independent monitor to oversee that decree's progress. Now, the agreement came after the DOJ had found patterns of constitutional violations within the department, especially highlighted after Breonna Taylor's death. The Metro Office of Equity says it's narrowed down its final candidates for the job. We are going to hear from the finalists at a public meeting soon. In fact, it is this coming Monday, September 15th. It's going to be at the Republic Bank Foundation YMCA. For those and we'll share the specific meeting time info if that's something you're interested in attending personally. But you could also watch the event live. We've learned it's going to be on the Louisville Metro government website. There's also going to be a survey where neighbors can share their respective input. Well, weeks after JCPS pulled a bad batch of milk, we're hearing from the district's top leader about what went wrong. A reminder how Wave News has stayed on top of this story, walking you through the timeline of when we first learned we thought those initial reports of the spoiled milk came in, and the timeline of records we were able to obtain after we requested them, establishing there actually been some concerns prior to that. Remember, Wave troubleshooters found the first hint of sour milk came from Stone Street Elementary on the 14th, August 14th, 6 days before JCPS pulled milk from its cafeterias in earnest. The cafeteria manager said there was mold on top of the inside of a carton of skimmed milk. And then when the complaints poured in on the 20th, including bad smelling milk, puffy cartons, milk delivered without expiration dates printed on the cartons, this is when the milk was pulled. Superintendent Dr. Brian Yearwood talking to us today, calling the situation unacceptable. And that was a quoted word he used several times.
By all my research and intent, yes, the problem has been corrected. It's terrible. It's very unfortunate. But giving students any kind of food that is not appropriate for consumption is unacceptable, right? Or school district, no, we're not going to do that. But we're able to get with the vendors. They have it corrected. They've put steps in place to ensure it never happens again.
Milk vendor Prairie Farms acknowledged some of its deliveries during the first week did not meet its own company standards. It said the bad milk deliveries occurred in a stretch of near 100-degree temperatures, and JCPS was given credit for all the milk that needed to be tossed out and then ultimately replaced. In a story for more of our reporting team gathering things happening in our community tonight, for the Louisville Pride event team for the festival, they're celebrating their 10th anniversary tomorrow along Bardstown Road, so something part of the community is going to look forward to for the weekend. Organizers, though, saying with changes in political climates and attitudes across the country, it's brought its own set of sponsorship challenges to the event. So Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Francescini is looking at how other parts of the community, other groups, other members and neighbors say they are wanting to step up.
It's been a busy Friday for organizers of the Louisville Pride Festival, making sure everything is in place for the big 10-year anniversary.
Normally, it starts at about 8, 9 o'clock. You know, the city comes and brings the dumpsters and the trash receptacles and then all of the bars.
Ebony Cross says they've planned for the biggest and proudest festival to date. That's despite the fact they've lost some sponsors this year.
Some sponsors that we had last year, you know, didn't return or maybe dropped their level.
It echoes what we saw a couple of months ago with the Kentuckiana Pride Festival. They lost about $75,000 in sponsorships. But Cross says the community has stepped up to help. This year, Louisville Pride will have a record-breaking number of vendors, more than 150 of them.
The sponsors that we have had last year that are currently coming back, it's just basically staking their claim of how much they are going to continue to support this community. And we've also, like I said, had a jump in vendors. So it was a slight drop, but we also saw the community come out and support even stronger, knowing that that would be a possibility this year.
Even though the future may look uncertain, Cross says they're focusing on hope as part of this year's theme, saying they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
That's what we want to bring, the spirit of the fact that we are going to be here regardless to what's going on in D.C.
It is 8:24 on this Friday night. Perhaps I'm trying to imagine some folks are tuning in right now on the Wave Now app or on the stream, perhaps checking in with us as we unpack the day's big stories, but also thinking about the college football and the high school football calendar. Shout out to the TDFN team. That's Kendrick Haskins, Dusty Baker, a whole slew of our photographers and even some reporters out there gathering this. So hopefully you can join us tonight when we break that all down for Touchdown Friday night. Here's a nice, quiet, well-lit view from our tower camera observing Louisville downtown as we wrap up this weekend. We're going to take a quick commercial break to reset and break down some more of today's top stories here on Wave News Extra. All right, everyone, 8:27 on this Friday night in the Wave Now studio for today's Wave Extra, breaking down some more stories happening in and around our community. So as a plan moves forward to tear down a pretty visible building icon in downtown, the Dosker Manor, there's a local group wanting to take care of seniors who are still living there, trying to figure out their next steps for what that new home is going to be. Colors Inc. and the African American think tank members handed out bags of fresh produce and other groceries to seniors today at the housing complex sometime earlier today. There is a massive relocation effort still happening. The group is wanting to remind the community to please regularly check in on seniors and to also educate themselves on what could be signs of possible neglect if these seniors are not being taken care of adequately.
They should not live like this. They're living in filth. They're living in poverty. They're living in situations that we can only imagine. And they just don't want nobody to feel like they just don't forget about it. So the think tank and Colors came here to give them a meal for today.
The advocates say they're planning to return next Friday. Now, back in August, Housing and Urban Development gave city leaders the final green light to demolish Dosker Manor, and this makes the voluntary relocation effort for these residents now mandatory as they're trying to find their next steps for what to do. And for anyone thinking about some traveling as we kind of, wrap up summer and thinking about fall travel plans, some news in the national headlines or the national orbit. Passengers won't receive any cash from airlines if and when the flight is delayed. The Trump administration now saying it's dropping the Biden White House era rule for compensating customers if there's a disrupted flight. Airlines in the U.S. domestically had been told they must refund passengers for canceled flights, but are not required now to pay for delays. Airlines for America is a lobbying group for airlines, and it supported the plan rolled back, praising it. The European Union, Canada, Brazil, and Britain, though groups there all do have airline delay compensation rules, just for reference. Well, tonight would be another evening thinking about anyone who has a potential lottery winning ticket, but not just any regular old ticket, the one that would win the now historic Powerball jackpot, as that number only seems to be climbing, soaring to $1.8 billion. It seems over the week there's been that rush for folks to stop into their gas stations and grocery stores to buy the tickets, wanting a piece of whatever that possibility could be. But some might be wondering at a psychological level, why do people get so excited about the idea of winning the lottery despite the astronomically low odds? Well, there is something to it. And a reminder, the chances of winning the top prize are about 1 in 292.2 million. So I'm going to say that again. 1 in 292 million chance you would win the Powerball jackpot. Now, despite the odds, psychologists say when the numbers rise into the billions, there's a part of our brain called the reward center that they say lights up. It releases dopamine into our brains, and that is the feel-good hormone. Many people would daydream about what they do if they won the lottery. Maybe they want to buy a dream home or quit their job if you were to win that astronomical payday. But experts do want to warn, just be careful about spending too much of your own cash in hand trying to win, because as with any sort of excess spending, it could put your finances in a downward spiral.
Set a limit in terms of dollar amount and frequency in terms of playing the lottery. Think about what you are really craving. Is it excitement, freedom, hope? What is driving you to play the lottery? And there are a lot of different avenues to fulfill that need.
Other red flags psychologists say you should watch out for include thinking obsessively about the lottery, maybe feeling anxious as you're waiting for the numbers to be drawn. And we say all that as the Powerball drawing is going to be tomorrow night, something surely a lot of us or you will be tuned into to check in on those numbers. And with it being one of the biggest Powerball jackpots ever, at least in the game's history, we're seeing some of those players trying to test their luck out on the streets of Louisville. Wave News anchor Brian Schlonsky, in fact, was out of the Publix on Terra Crossing this morning, and the celebration seemed to be on early. Hundreds of people trying to get a free shot at what could be a life-changing fortune.
I would go on a big trip with my family, and that would be the first thing.
It was lottery fever Friday morning outside of the Publix on Terra Crossing.
Yeah, we will see if I can get something, man.
Roughly 500 coupons for one $2 Powerball ticket given out for free as a celebration for the Powerball, hitting $1.8 billion as of Friday afternoon. The second highest jackpot in history for the Powerball game and likely growing.
That's big, bro. I can buy a nice house right there.
They'll draw for a winner this Saturday, the 42nd drawing since a jackpot was last won back in May. That makes this the longest streak without a Powerball jackpot winner ever.
We haven't had one of these in quite some time, so we're even more excited about this one. And wouldn't it be great to have that $1.7 billion winner in Kentucky?
People told us they'd try to cure cancer, pay off debts, give to charity, mostly altruistic and positive things with the money. And while this line was for a freebie, people are buying and buying tickets, hoping one will pay off.
Oh yes, my husband has bought several tickets in the past week or two.
And even if you don't win, money goes to support education and college scholarships in Kentucky, which begs the age-old question.
Somebody's got to win, might as well be you.
All right, thanks to Brian for stopping by and chatting to folks. Again, the next drawing is going to be tomorrow night. There's a chance the pot jumps again before the drawing is even made. The record jackpot for the Powerball apparently is just over $2 billion, so something to keep in mind. Certainly will be a conversation starter if or when there is a winner, whoever draws those lucky numbers. Taking another quick live look at a much darker night sky. From our Jeffersonville Skytrack camera, enjoying the lights of the bridges and our skyscraping skyline. It's a lot of ways to say a lot of things right there. Okay. We're going to give ourselves a break to reset and touch on some more stories. We're going to wrap up with a continuation in a series that our Wave News anchor Dawn G has been doing this week, a fascinating dive back into local history for Jefferson County. So we're going to reset, take a quick commercial break, and be right back with more Wave News Extra. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. 8:36 on this September 5th here in the Wave Wave News Extra studio here. Wanted to do a little dive into a date to date in history, and of course, could not miss the opportunity to discuss an important milestone in the career of the greatest of Muhammad Ali. We're going to set up this little newspaper clipping just in case there, with it being today in history where Muhammad Ali winning that gold. A great picture, by the way, to see there, and wearing the ice, wearing the gold. That was well deserved. Just letting that sit there. So going through some, there we go. And around that time, this was the date, September 5th of 1960, back when Ali, as his name legally was, Cassius Clay, winning the gold medal in the light heavyweight boxing division. This was at the Olympic Games in Rome. Surrounded the two other men in the picture with him, Sergeant Eddie Crook of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and Willie McClure of Toledo, Ohio. You see there from the clipping from the Chicago Tribune. So just wanted to shout out a little slice of that history on this September 5th. And for our last story tonight, a continuation in our Wave News anchor Dawn G's series into the history of JCPS busing and when that was finally integrated. And a voice back when there were certain people having to make these decisions with the levers of power and authority they were given by the voters. That back then being Louisville Mayor Harvey Sloan mandated to integrate Louisville schools. So Dawn got a chance to talk to the former mayor about what was really happening, how it happened as JCPS made national news and even history with the buses rolling out to integrate schools. As Dawn has described, and she will in the report you're about to listen to in the story, that Sloan was eager, open to talk about the bumps and the pitfalls in the road on the journey to integration for city and county schools. And for someone who lived in the city, perhaps if you are tuned in and lived in that time, September of 1975, as a parent or student, it is a time that a reporter like Dawn and then Mayor Sloan say they are never going to forget.
1975, Louisville, Kentucky faced a federal court order from Judge James F. Gordon to merge its predominantly white county schools with the city's mostly black schools.
It was a very stressful time. People were angry. We weren't prepared for this at all. I mean, 6 weeks to bus 22,300 students. That's a lot of students. And they don't know what's going on, and the teacher's not sure, and the bus drivers are not sure where they're going. I mean, it was just absolutely chaotic.
Less than 24 hours before the first school bus was to roll off the compound, Mayor Sloan received a visitor at home in the wee hours of the morning, the head of the FOP.
And he said, Mayor, my people, police people, don't agree with this busing, and they are just not going to participate at being on the buses. I said, well, that's a problem.
Within minutes, just as the mandate came down from the office of Judge Gordon, word came down to the FOP, this time from Judge Gordon's marshal.
And he said, well, just tell the FOP that if the police are not on the bus in the morning, they won't be police officers by noon.
Everyone had their marching orders, but they had no plan.
Of course, there wasn't any plan. September 4th came, and I rode the bus from Shawnee out to Fairdale. I was greeted by the most angry white crowd you could imagine.
Violence, anger, hatred, and threats. Mayor Sloan even feared for the safety of his wife and children.
We had a bullet in our bay window. I had a pretty good contract on my life, and they I had a vest on that I had to wear all over the place. A lot of threatening calls. My wife's, she had a car which was burnt twice. It was on the street.
He was determined not to be deterred.
This is a federal court order, and we're going to adhere to it peacefully. You appeal to the good hearts of Black and white people, particularly in relation to their children.
Man, a labor of love there for our Dawn G in her reporting. As a reminder, you can read not just this particular chapter in her reporting, but it is up there for you to read in full on wave3.com. There's a previous, dive into the history that she did earlier this week. Great to have it all there for you to access on the wave3.com homepage. A reminder, of course, even on days where, an alert date can change and some things we've been tracking, even for some of our folks that tune in to watch us in closer to Southern Kentucky, just knowing what is going on, how to prepare. But of course, all of that, the resource from the storm tracking team, all the latest headlines, breaking news, updated as soon as possible right there on the home page there for you to access. And again, the usual reminder, if you haven't done already, it's great to have it on your smartphones, to have the Wave News app itself, the Wave Weather Now app. You're obviously able to connect and spend some time with us if you're doing that from your smart TV or your smart devices joining us tonight. Have to imagine there's going to be could hopefully then be some smiling faces depending if your respective high school team is winning, and over the course of the college football weekend, the Cards, the Hoosiers, the Cats, however they are doing respectively. We'll see how that all pans out. And we'll be looking forward to breaking down, as I'd say, those highlights with the sports team of Kendrick and Dusty. So hope you join us tonight as we go through some of the great action on Wave News at 11, and part of our reporting team as well with their investigations into the stories of the day. I always appreciate your time. Hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend and stay safe and have fun. I'm Jose Sosaya in the Wave Now studio. We will see you next week.